This is DW News live from Berlin. Taking a joint approach to Afghanistan's new rulers, the US and Germany's top diplomats tell the Taliban they'll have to earn legitimacy with the international community after the group announced their new interim government. And terrorism on trial in France. The suspects of the 2015 Paris attacks face accountability for a night of carnage. Cuba begins vaccinating children as young as 2 against COVID-19, the first country in the world to do so. Hello, I'm Raheela Mahomed. The United States and Germany have warned the Taliban to honour their pledge to form an inclusive government in Afghanistan. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken and German Foreign Minister Heiko Maas met at Ramstein Air Base. They held a virtual meeting with ministers from 20 nations on the situation in Afghanistan, where the Taliban recently announced a government filled with hardliners.
It was a quick meeting with the U.S. Secretary of State for these Afghan evacuees. Tens of thousands like them have transited Ramstein Air Base en route to new lives in the West. On Wednesday, the base was the site of talks addressing the uncertainty in the country they left behind. Antony Blinken and his German counterpart Heiko Maas convened a virtual summit of ministers from over 20 countries. On the agenda, how to engage with Afghanistan's new leadership. But after the talks, words of doubt from the U.S. and Germany.
The Taliban named a new interim government. We're assessing the announcement, but despite professing that a new government would be inclusive, the announced list of names consists exclusively of individuals who are members of the Taliban or their close associates, and no women.
Yesterday's news does not leave us optimistic. The formation of an interim government, not including other groups, does not bode well for international cooperation and stability in the country. And we hope that this will be addressed as the government continues to be formed. Doubt, too, on the streets of Kabul. Dozens of women rallied against Taliban rule. They're demanding a voice in the new government, as well as the right to work and go to school. But it's dangerous to dissent. This footage shows Taliban members whipping female protesters. In order to demand their rights be protected, it's clear that Afghan women will have to confront a real threat of violence.
And Peter Mora, the president of the International Committee of the Red Cross, has appealed to the international community to provide humanitarian support to Afghanistan.
We are certainly interested, and I have been encouraged by the dialogue with the representatives of the new Afghan government about the readiness to let us work as in the past. We go back, contrary to many other organizations, to a rich history of engagement with the Taliban. Now that they are in government, there is no reason not to continue that engagement and to see how we can respond to ever-increasing needs that we have seen emerge.
Well, Hamoud Saburi is an Afghan political analyst. He joins us from Washington, D.C. Good to have you with us on DW News. So what leverage do you think the United States and Germany have right now to hold the interim Taliban government to account?
It's close to zero. The U.S. and Germany doesn't have any leverage at all at this point because they have evacuated all their embassies, they have evacuated all their military personnel, and they have not reached any agreement with the Taliban since they started negotiating. So basically, but the leverage that we were talking about, it's non-existent. It's going to make everything complicated for the United States, especially when it comes to evacuation and also other issues related to interim government and also the participation of women. I think these issues where the U.S. wanted to have leverage, that's basically doesn't exist anymore.
So what immediate actions do you expect to see from the Taliban?
The initial action was that the Taliban should form an inclusive government and show the international community that they're prepared to have an inclusive government, have women participate in the government and other political forces. But that didn't happen. I think the second step would be for the Taliban, if they really want to have some recognition and open the door, would be to start talking with certain European and EU countries through other channels. And I think if they do not start that direct negotiation and talk with them, it will marginalize Taliban and also make things a little difficult for the international community in terms of humanitarian aid and also evacuation and other plans.
So given the situation on the ground at the moment, how will all of this help the Taliban when it comes to access to funds? Are they looking for international support and legitimacy right now?
I think for legitimacy, it's a secondary issue for them. At this point, they're looking at forming their government. And then when they're looking more into the region in terms of legitimacy, China, Pakistan is already there. Working very closely with the Taliban. Russia hinted that they will support. The Gulf countries are providing humanitarian support in the past couple of days. So I think at this point, they're not looking beyond the region for legitimacy. So and keep the wider legitimacy to a future pending what's going to happen in Afghanistan. So that's the situation. I think they are more regional focused rather than going international.
Okay, Hamid Saburi, thank you very much for your insights.
Thank you.
Now, lyrics from John Lennon and Yoko Ono's song Imagine have been projected onto buildings in London, Berlin and Tokyo to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the song's release.
I hope someday you'll join us. You may say I'm a dreamer.
The famed track is considered as one of the greatest songs of all time. Ono says the sentiment of the song is just as important as it was half a century ago. You're watching DW News live from Berlin. Up next is a documentary about the September 11th attacks in New York and Washington. I'll see you soon after that. Bye-bye.